I'd like to get back to the draft dodgers and the other forms of resistance you mentioned in a few minutes. But first, something you said that really struck me, a meta pronouncement you made at the beginning of your response is that ambivalence is, I think you said ambivalence is difficult to pull from the historical record. And what struck me about this is the reason that would be is that ambivalence is marked by absence. It's sort of like a negative rather than a positive feature of the historical record, something that isn't there. And I imagine that this is one place where a historian has a lot of wiggle room to work around the facts, so to speak, going back to where we would begin talking about this weaving of narrative, that a historian always has an incomplete record of the past, and the freedom that the historian has is often in working with the things that aren't there. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's not there is just as important as what is, right? And partly it's figuring out, is it missing because it wasn't preserved, right? Is it missing because it was never recorded, right? And if it was never recorded, why is that, right? And of course, we've had a generation of social historians who've pointed out ways in which some people's stories are never recorded. In this time period, women, African Americans, and others, where the sources are absent or minimal. But in this case, I think what we're looking for is this something that someone doesn't want to document, right? They don't want to document that they're ambivalent about the draft. Or, they might be trying to convince their husband or father to file, kind of an exemption claim. That's going to be done through conversation, through a whisper network, through, I heard from so-and-so down the street that they got an exemption. And those kinds of things, you call it wiggle room, and I think that's good. I think it's imagination, but in the best sense. So not in the sense that you're just making it up, right? You're using what you know about how society works, how people act on their interests, and how they respond to social pressure, right? And the job of the historian is to bear all that in mind and make some educated guesses about what people might have been doing.
And this is one place in which the historian's work dovetails, I suspect, with other disciplines. So especially as you get go further back in time, if you don't have a historical record for prehistory, for example, you have to consult with archaeologists, or you have to be very familiar with the literary traditions of the time to know what people were thinking if they weren't writing them down, if there was only an oral tradition, say, something like that. This is all on my mind because I mentioned I'm talking to Norman Neymark tomorrow, and this is taking us a bit far afield from World War I, but he includes in his text a lot about prehistory and ancient history of genocide, and he talks about genocide in biblical times and the genocide that is talked about in the Iliad. And there you really do have an absence of a legitimate historical record, and you have to piece things together from other avenues. But okay, no, this is all very fascinating to me. And do you have anything to say to that, or should I?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's absolutely true. And part of it is about, some of it is also using the insights of other disciplines, right? Economics teaches us some things about how people might respond to economic pressures or incentives. Sociology can help us understand, how an institution is likely to work, right? And so historians are always borrowing from those kinds of disciplines along the way.